boy to chase down every one of Donald Trump's stupid conspiracy theories, and that is making America less safe.
It's so much worse than we thought.
Is making us more susceptible to terrorist attacks. That is meaning that domestically we're more susceptible to gangland-style attacks. That means our children are more susceptible to drugs in their school, in our neighborhoods, because the Attorney General, the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, is not focused on keeping America safe. He's only focused on being Donald Trump's errand boy and chasing down conspiracy theories. I say all this just to say this is not what you do when impeachment numbers skyrocket against you, but that's what Donald Trump's doing. It's bad news for him politically. It's bad news for Republicans, but more importantly, it's really bad news for America.
Well, he's totally consumed by it. Just check Twitter if you have any doubt about that. And he's enlisted everyone in his government. The walls are now down between the Justice Department and the State Department. I said his government. It's not his government. It's our government. Those walls are down. You have Mike Pompeo on the phone call in July with Zelensky, saying again and again to Martha Raddatz, as you pointed out, also at the UN last week, you're asking me about something I don't know anything about. I haven't seen the whistleblower report. Next question. That was a lie. He was on the phone call. As you say, the Attorney General is flying around the world, making unreported trips to places like Italy to investigate American intelligence agencies to help President Trump. Chasing conspiracy theories. This is all while the president is back home tweeting about a civil war, about arresting a prominent member of Congress for treason, and also trying to find out who the whistleblower is. Maybe it's because of these new polls that show President Trump's impeachment steadily growing support among Americans. Let's start with Quinnipiac, where 52% now approve a majority of the impeachment inquiry into President Trump.
That's gone up.
52%. When it comes to impeachment and removal from office, the Q poll found a 10% increase in support over just the last week, up to 47%. Meanwhile, the latest CNN poll found 47% of Americans say they back impeaching and removing President Trump. 45% say they do not. In the latest Reuters poll, 45% say the president should be impeached. That is up 8 points from a week ago. Meanwhile, two sources with direct knowledge of the situation told NBC News that President Trump is telling allies, and did days ago, that he would start worrying about losing Republican support if national polls went above 50% of Americans supporting impeachment. And as we just reported in that Q poll, we're at 52% supporting the inquiry, Joe.
Yeah, at 52%. And Willie, what's equally surprising and jarring is that, I mean, some of these polls involve in the impeachment inquiry. Others involve removing him from office. And we're at about a 50-50 proposition on most of those polls. The Q poll, 47% want Donald Trump impeached and removed from office. He's got to be worried. But again, the move is not to chase conspiracy theories when you're worried. And I mean, don't you think, Willie, that's one of the problems? The Republicans, and this was reported today, that the Republicans are getting tired of Donald Trump's ad hoc attacks, getting tired of the calls for civil war, getting tired of the calls for treason. You know, Eric Erickson, pretty darn conservative guy who supports Donald Trump, just said the calls for civil war are only going to turn more Republicans against it.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. And I think in this case, there's not some opaque Mueller report that we can't see into and we're waiting to see the results. We saw last week a summary of the phone call where Americans, including Republicans, could see for themselves what the president asked of President Zelensky. Then we saw out in public view the whistleblower report, which went into greater detail. This one you can get your arms around pretty quickly. And if you look at that polling, Americans don't like what they see.
This is what we've been saying now for days. You can't complicate something that is pretty basic. Now to the new reporting concerning Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's role in that July 25th phone call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine that is now at the center of an impeachment inquiry. A senior State Department official tells the Wall Street Journal and NBC News has confirmed the reporting that Pompeo was among the administration officials who listened in on the phone call. Pompeo's participation on the call hasn't been previously reported. In interviews last week, Pompeo said that he hadn't read the whistleblower's complaint in its entirety, but maintained that actions by the State Department had been entirely appropriate.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump pressed the president of Ukraine 8 times to work with Rudy Giuliani to investigate Joe Biden's son. What do you know about those conversations?
So you just gave me a report about a high-seek whistleblower campaign, none of which I've seen.
Are you confident that none of your staff, that you or none of your staff did anything improper in this whole situation? Thank you.
But Matt, I haven't had a chance to actually read the whistleblower complaint yet. I read the first couple of paragraphs and then got busy today. But I'll ultimately get a chance to see it. If I understand it right, it's from someone who had secondhand knowledge. To the best of my knowledge, and from what I've seen so far, each of the actions that were undertaken by State Department officials was entirely appropriate.
I don't know.
Come on.
I don't know which one of those clips is more insulting. He lies in both. You know, in the second, he was talking about, from what he understood, the whistleblower had secondhand knowledge. And yet, there he was.
He was in the room.
On
he was
the
on
phone, listening to the conversation. He knows more than all of us know right now, and yet he lied to those reporters. And let's just play the first clip again, because, again, it's
you
not
can
just
see
the
him
lying.
struggling.
It's not just the lying, it's the arrogance. In both cases, he laughs off the question. He's so arrogant. And he's so snide. Oh, well, you're asking me a question that he knows nothing about. I'm sorry, play the clip again.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump pressed the president of Ukraine 8 times to work with Rudy Giuliani to investigate Joe Biden's son. What do you know about those conversations?
So you just gave me a report about a high-seek whistleblower campaign, none of which I've seen.
Willie, I don't know where to start there. No, I mean, you just gave me a report, and you just, again, she asked him a specific question. What do you know about the conversation?
Yeah. And
he was listening into the conversation and yet lied two times there. Once at the UN saying, oh, I have work to do, I'm busy, and this was just secondhand knowledge. Again, it just shows the extraordinary bad faith that the president and all the president's men are engaged in right now in any past administration.
And this is what the media is up against. This is what Democrats are up against.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you the truth, and you have to assume that.
In any past administration, a Secretary of State lying like that would be fired. In any past administration, except maybe the Nixon administration, an Attorney General that has lied as much and committed perjury in front of the United States Congress would be fired. You were exactly right. We are now at a point where we have to assume the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the President of the United States, the Vice President, they're all in on this, and they're all lying. Why? Because they've already proven it to us.
And the Secretary of State, Eddie, leapt right to when he said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't read this report. But what I do know is that it was secondhand, that it was hearsay. So in other words, he hasn't read the report, but he knows he should be attacking it because that's the order he's been given. We also heard last week from Rudy Giuliani when he would ask, what are you doing in Ukraine, this investigation? He said, I was sent there by the State Department. Well, that makes sense now because you have the Secretary of State, the head of the State Department, on the call helping President Trump direct this back and forth, this quid pro quo with Ukraine.
What we see here is that the problem that we locate principally with Trump is not simply Trump's problem. That lying with impunity is, in fact, the culture of the White House. That truthiness, that old Colbert word, right, has become the order of the day. And it seems to me that when you combine this culture of lying with this deep distrust of government that runs throughout the country, right? It seems that we're in a moment of intense crisis, not just simply with them and all of the president's men, but in crisis in terms of our democracy as such, because you got to have trust as the basis, as the foundation for democratic deliberation. When you have folk lying to you day in and day out, and folk